So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Welcome to my iPhone 12 Pro Max 1 year later. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro Max did come out onto the scene about a year ago. November 13th was the exact date that it did release in stores, and it came in right around $1,099 for this phone. It came in silver. It did come in the space gray color as well as gold for this model, and you also had the Pacific blue if you wanted the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Also came with 128 gigabytes to start. That was a nice change. It was up from 64 gigs to start on the iPhone 11 Pro Max the year before. So that was a nice change as well. Now, 1 year along, I gotta say, every year Apple keeps replacing the Max model and they kick out the old model. And it seems like nobody cares about the last model once the new one comes out, except for the people that already had bought it. But that's quite sad because this phone is like 95% what the 13 Pro Max is. I don't care what anybody tells you. Yeah, you have a bigger battery, better cameras, a smoother display, but come on, let's be real. If somebody gives a professional the 12 Pro Max, they'll get more use out of this than a person who doesn't know, how to use the cameras to their full potential on a 13 Pro Max. So these phones are both great. Just keep that in mind. All right, so my take on the body 1 year later. Now, we have stainless steel squared edges. I like this body quite a bit. This phone right here doesn't have a thick camera bump like the newer one. It is lighter, not a lot. It's still a heavy 228 grams or so, but it's not the 240 from the 13 Pro Max. It feels premium. There's nothing cheap at all feeling about the 12 Pro Max. The 12 Pro Max actually feels just as premium, I would say, just about, as the newer 13 Pro Max. No major changes here. The matte glass on the back here. You do have the stainless steel edges. A lot of people would love to experience what this phone feels like even now. So the 12 Pro Max held on perfectly well. I will say my silver model does show a lot of scratches, but that's no different from my iPhone 10 that was in silver. You don't get the silver if micro scratches make you upset. Some people say just clean the stainless steel. There's ways to do it. Yeah, I don't want to do that every day. So just keep that in mind. This one does show scratches a little bit more. It is able to be cleaned, and keep that in mind as well, but still, just had to mention that. The ceramic glass is held on well. I do keep a screen protector on it, however, but I have noticed it doesn't really scratch super easily. And overall, the body, I've dropped this quite a few times and it's held on just fine. I gotta say, a year later, I don't feel any different about the newer phone when it comes to the overall premium feel. Now, if I was to discuss the display, I thought it was insane how bright the 12 Pro Max got last year, and then they came out with the 13 Pro Max this year and it hits 1,000 nits, but this still is very bright. And yeah, the 13 has the same brightness as this, but that's a really bright display. So you're not going to be caring too much if you were to get this phone now, or if you had this phone about brightness. It gets extremely bright. I was never even keeping the 12 Pro Max to the top level, just because the iPhone 12 Pro Max does have, such a bright display as well. So you can see right here, it's kind of overexposing. That's how bright it is. Around 800 nits usable, 1200 peak on this one as well, just like the 13 Pro Max. It can get that 1200 peak. Now, when we talk about how smooth the display is, 60 hertz is not too bad. It's not 120 hertz like the new one, but iOS is still a very smooth animation, smooth operating system. So when you are going through things, you're not going to feel like you have some slow, laggy phone just because your display doesn't refresh as fast as the newer one. In addition to that, it's still very large, and while we do have the notch that's a little bit longer this way, it's not as deep that way. So even though this has a longer notch this way, it's still a 6.7 inch display. It's OLED, it's got great contrast, so you're not really going to see it too much. You're not going to really notice it too much because you have such a larger display. You'll kind of just forget about it and just enjoy this panel. Overall, this is still a premium panel that just doesn't have a fast refresh rate. That's the way you got to look at it. Kind of like the iPhone 13. It's still a premium panel, but it doesn't have the fast refresh rate. I'm talking about the regular 13. Text is very sharp on here, and it's always at a high resolution. It stays at its highest resolution. That means you don't change it down to a 720 or a 1080 to save battery. It is always at its highest resolution, which is a good thing. So the panel overall, very good still. It doesn't have 3D touch. We got rid of that a while ago, but you still have True Tone, your dark mode, night shift, just like most other phones. And you have a nice range of brightness that gets extremely dim, almost like the display is off, and then it gets extremely bright as well. Pretty happy with the display still. All right, so if I'm to discuss software, we have iOS 15 on board here, and I gotta say that iOS 15 feels the same on this phone as it feels on basically any other iPhone. So you're getting the same updates. I haven't updated to 15.1 on here yet, but you are getting the same updates for this phone as you will be getting on the newer devices as well, including things like SharePlay that came in 15.1, as well as these other new features. And if you hit learn more, it'll show you all the stuff that does come with each new update. This phone is nowhere near close to stop getting updates. iPhone 12 Pro Max gets updates for the next 4 years. So if you buy this phone now, you're not outdated. It doesn't matter if it's not for sale officially at Apple. You're still not outdated at all with this device. It's still crushing a lot of phones out there, on the market. It's still better than a lot of them. So you're definitely not outdated at all. Software though wise, if you have any iPhone that can run 15, unless you're coming from like an older iPhone, like if you're coming from a 10 or a 10s Max, something like that, this will still feel like a nice hardware upgrade, but giving you the same software experience. So that's pretty neat. You don't get the cinematic modes like in the new iPhones here. It's just going to be photo, video, your usual stuff, but you do get 4K HDR video in here if you want to enable it. I turned it off because I don't want to edit that video, but if you do want to use it, it's there. So nice software, great software support still available for the iPhone 12 Pro Max 1 year later. Now, performance. I've said it before. I said it last year, and I'm going to say it. I said it this year for the 13 Pro Max. Most people are never going to stretch this to its max potential, the performance. It still performs as good as, some of the top Android phones on the market. So this phone, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, is the fastest out there right now, but at 6 gigs of RAM, it matches the 13 Pro Max. And yes, it doesn't have 120 hertz like we talked about earlier, but the A14 hasn't missed a beat. And I actually ran into no reloads here for the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and that was a joy because before with the 11 Pro Max, I had 4 gigs of RAM, and sometimes I would, in fact, run into a reload. So performance strong still on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Most users are still never make this one choke. Storage, I went with the 256 gig and I have deleted some stuff. You could get this with 512. Now this is an area where the iPhone 13 Pro Max does see some nice benefits. So if you wanted more storage, you had to go there for this phone. Other than that, starting at 128 gig, pretty good overall option. I think that's enough storage for a lot of people. Battery is something that everybody is praising, including I did as well on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but it's not like the 12 Pro Max was bad. This was the phone I used most of the year for iPhone land, and I was getting through the day with no problems, and it still makes it through the day with no problems. So, the iPhone 13 Pro Max can stretch into 2, like a day and a half, almost 2. This phone can make it through a full day easily with heavy use. So, it's not like you're behind because you got an iPhone 12 Pro Max. You're getting through the day even without hitting the charger until you go sleep, basically. So very good battery life on here as well. I wouldn't have any issues recommending you this if you wanted to go pick up one of these secondhand or you got a great deal on it for battery. So let's talk about the cameras 1 year later. I'm not going to give too much of a discussion on them. They are basically iPhone cameras like you would expect. You have the ultra wide, you can go up to 2.5x or 12x on the zoom. So a nice update in zoom over the 11 Pro Max. Video, you can do 4K 60. On the front, you can do 4K 60, but I took so many samples with these throughout the year, and I just got to tell you, it's called the Pro for a reason. You have a lot of Pro things you can do on this phone, and if you took advantage of them, they were great. I always liked the results for the 12 Pro Max. They were pretty stunning to me for a phone. So go ahead and check out the results I got with this, and you could tell me 1 year later if you still think this thing is competitive, because I definitely do. Lastly, I want to talk about some connectivity things. So the phone call quality, 5G, as well as mobile performance, all very good on here. Qualcomm on board, and I had great reception no matter where I was, pretty much everywhere on this phone. Also, you can connect with a lightning port, no USB-C on here, kind of lame. I would like to see iPhone go to a USB-C. Some people won't care because they got a million lightning cables, but it's more universal. It's on the iPad. It's on, some other products in the Apple lineup like the MacBook. So I'd like to see this go there. So 1 year later with the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I don't know if you've been noticing this trend, but a lot of people are telling many people across media that if you have the 12 Pro Max, you probably don't need the upgrade unless you really want it this year for the 13 Pro Max. And there's a good reason why. This phone is like 90% what that phone is. If you give this to a person and you have them hold the 13 Pro Max, they're going to say, are these the same phone? Like, they're literally probably going to think that. So you wouldn't be wrong in thinking if you could find this thing like $400 or $500 off, maybe $800 or so, $700, you're getting a really, really good phone right here that was just previously $1,100, $1,200. So if you could find this on a deal, I still think this is totally worth it if you want to save and you don't want something like a smaller iPhone 13. A 13 Pro even is over $1,000. So if you could find this thing a little bit lower, that would be a pretty good steal of a deal. Or if somebody's just giving it away because they want to get a new phone, they know you and they're cutting you a big deal, jump on it. It's a really great phone. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful, entertaining, informing. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know your experience with the 12 Pro Max, if you're over it, if you think it's still a great phone, and if I should continue to cover this down the line. Let me know if you want to see more videos on that. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.